August 13th, 1944, Argentan, France. General George S. Patton received a phone call from General Omar Bradley. Bradley's message was brief and direct. Stop at Argentan. Patton's Third Army sat 20 miles from Falaise, 20 miles from closing the trap, 20 miles from encircling what remained of German forces in Normandy. Patton's lead elements could potentially advance that distance rapidly under favorable conditions. Bradley said stop. Patton stopped. But he understood layers to this decision that he would almost never discuss publicly. This is the story of the decision that let tens of thousands of German soldiers escape. The order Patton followed, but never forgave. And the truth about Allied coordination that emerged not in official reports, but in private diaries and post-war assessments. August 13th, 1944. Bradley stopped Patton 20 miles from victory. Patton knew why. Never said it publicly. 100,000 Germans escaped. Fought at Market Garden, fought at Bulge. Silence has a body count. Subscribe. July 25th, 1944. Operation Cobra. American breakout from Normandy. Patton's Third Army activated. Given mission, exploit the breakthrough. Drive east. Cut off German retreat. Within 2 weeks, Patton's armor covered 200 miles. German 7th Army trapped. The Falaise pocket formed. Picture a closing vise. North side, British and Canadian forces under Montgomery pushing south from Caen. South side, Patton's Third Army driving north from Le Mans. East side, open, Germans retreating through shrinking gap. West side, American forces pressing from Normandy beachhead. Tens of thousands of German soldiers surrounded. Entire formations, tanks, artillery, supply columns. If the gap closed, catastrophic German losses. War potentially shortened. The gap was 40 miles wide on August 10th. By August 12th, 30 miles. By August 13th, 20 miles. Patton's lead elements reached Argentan, southern jaw of the trap. Montgomery's forces still fighting north of Falaise, northern jaw. 20 miles separated them. Patton to his staff, "We could close this." His tanks were ready, fuel sufficient. Resistance in places appeared fragmented. All he needed, permission to advance those final 20 miles. 1600 hours. August 13th. Bradley called Patton. Bradley's order was clear: do not advance beyond Argentan. Patton, stunned. According to various accounts, Patton's response referenced letting British forces handle the northern closure, with characteristically sharp language about another Dunkirk. Bradley, stop at Argentan. Patton hung up, turned to his staff. According to staff accounts recorded later, Patton was furious. Paced his command post. Said things about British coordination he never repeated publicly. But he followed orders. Third Army stopped at Argentan. The gap stayed open. Bradley gave official reason immediately. Official explanation? Boundary between American and British forces set at Argentan. If Patton advanced beyond, risk of friendly fire with British forces coming south. Coordination nightmare. American and British units might engage each other in confusion. That explanation appeared in Bradley's August 13th orders. That explanation appeared in his official reports. That explanation appeared in his 1951 memoir, A Soldier's Story. Bradley's private correspondence and some historians' assessments suggest the decision was made within a broader calculation. Montgomery's forces were not advancing from the north as quickly as hoped. The Caen front had taken longer and proved more costly than anticipated, which delayed the northern closure. British and Canadian units fought hard but moved methodically. If Patton closed the gap from the south alone, two concerns emerged. Concern 1. Appearance that Americans were doing disproportionate work while British lagged. Political complications for Montgomery, Churchill, Anglo-American alliance. Concern 2. If Americans closed northern side of pocket designated for British forces, potential for resentment. Post-war complications. Bradley faced choice: push for faster closure or maintain clear operational boundaries and alliance harmony. He chose boundaries and harmony. He stopped Patton. The official reason, boundary protocols and friendly fire risk, was legitimate. But according to historians who studied private correspondence, coalition politics, and tempo differences, also influenced the decision. Patton understood the layers of this decision. His diary, August 13, 1944. Written that night. He described the stop order, called it a terrible mistake, wrote that closure was achievable, then added, carefully, knowing these papers might be read, that coordination with British was complex. But to his staff, according to multiple accounts, Patton was less diplomatic. Staff officer accounts recorded later describe Patton expressing frustration about Allied coordination and tempo differences in sharp terms. He almost never said any of this publicly, not in press conferences, not in official reports, not in post-war interviews. Why not? 3 reasons. Reason 1, military discipline. Bradley was his superior officer. Orders were orders. Reason 2, alliance politics. Public criticism of British would damage Anglo-American cooperation. Patton understood strategic necessity of alliance even when frustrated by tactical consequences. Reason 3, personal vulnerability. Patton already disciplined twice during war. Soldier-slapping incidents in Sicily, 1943. Another controversy could end his career. He had enemies waiting for excuse to remove him permanently. So Patton stayed silent, followed orders, and watched the gap stay open. August 13th to 19th, 1944. 6 days. The Falaise Gap remained open. German 7th Army streaming through. Not organized withdrawal. Chaos. Panic. Abandoning equipment, but escaping. Allied aircraft pounded the roads. Thousands of Germans killed in bombing runs. Vehicles destroyed. Carnage visible from the air. But soldiers escaped on foot. Officers reformed units beyond the gap. Equipment salvaged where possible. August 19th. Gap finally closed. British and Canadian forces from north met Polish forces, attached to Montgomery's command, and Americans from south at Chambois. Too late. Estimates vary significantly on German casualties and escapes. Killed in pocket, 10,000 to 15,000. Captured, 50,000. Escaped. Conservative estimates suggest 20,000 to 40,000. Some historians argue the number was significantly higher. The wide range reflects chaos, nobody counting precisely during battle. Estimates based on German unit strength before and after, even conservative numbers, tens of thousands of trained German soldiers who might have been captured or killed, escaped to fight again. Where did they go? Reformed east of Seine River, some units sent to Germany for refit. Others deployed immediately to plug gaps in German defensive lines. These escaped veterans would contribute to German defensive capacity in subsequent months, though they were not the only factor in later Allied setbacks. Montgomery's post-war memoirs. Detailed account of Normandy campaign. When addressing criticism about Falaise timing, Montgomery emphasized terrain challenges and German resistance strength. His explanations: Caen was more heavily defended than expected. German resistance stronger than intelligence suggested. Casualties among British forces required careful advancement. All documented factors. But historians note they provide incomplete picture of tempo differences. The deeper context: Montgomery's operational style emphasized thorough preparation, overwhelming force, minimal British casualties, methodical advancement. American style under Patton: speed, aggression, accept higher risk for faster results. Neither style inherently wrong. Different philosophies, different national circumstances. Britain, exhausted from 5 years of war, manpower limited, could not afford heavy casualties. Caution made strategic sense. America, fresh forces, resources abundant, could absorb casualties Britain could not. But these different approaches created coordination challenges. When American speed met British methodical pace, friction. Patton wanted to exploit momentum. Montgomery wanted to secure gains. Bradley caught between them, and tens of thousands of Germans escaped through the gap. Bradley defended decision rest of his life. His 1951 memoir, A Soldier's Story, entire chapter on Falaise. His argument? Boundary between forces existed for reason. Violating it risked chaos. Friendly fire between American and British units would have caused casualties and confusion. Better to maintain clear boundaries even if gaps stayed open temporarily. Bradley also wrote, Montgomery's forces were advancing as terrain and German resistance allowed. Criticism of British pace unfair. Defensive tone throughout chapter. Bradley knew decision was controversial, knew historians would question it. What Bradley was more careful about in published memoir, the extent to which coalition politics influenced the decision. That tempo differences between American and British forces created operational tensions. That he chose to prioritize clear boundaries and alliance harmony. But historians later examined Bradley's private papers, letters, memos, staff meeting notes. Different tone. Frustration with coordination challenges visible. Acknowledgement that boundary explanation was part of more complex calculation. In private correspondence with other American officers, Bradley more candid about tempo differences and missed opportunities. But Bradley, like Patton, never emphasized these tensions publicly. Alliance required discretion. The Patton Papers, 1940 to 1945. Published 1974. Edited by Martin Blumenson. Patton's private diary entries from August 1944 revealed. August 13th. Frustration about stop order. Belief that gap could have been closed. Careful language about coordination challenges. August 15th. Watching Germans escape. Anger building. Writing became less guarded. August 19th. Gap finally closed. Patton's assessment, too late. Later entries. Scattered references to Falaise throughout rest of August. Pattern clear. Patton believed operational tempo was compromised by coordination requirements. But even in private diary, Patton was somewhat measured. He knew diaries might be read eventually. The sharper opinions came through in what Patton told his staff. Multiple Third Army officers interviewed years later confirmed. Patton believed tempo differences hampered operations. Patton thought Bradley stopped him partly due to coalition sensitivities. Patton believed Allied soldiers would pay costs later because of Germans who escaped Falaise. But Patton almost never said any of this in venues where it might become public. Not testimony, not interviews, not official documents. He followed orders, maintained discretion, preserved alliance, and tens of thousands of Germans escaped. September 17th to 25th, 1944. Operation Market Garden. British airborne assault to capture bridges across Rhine. Montgomery's plan, bold, ambitious. German response, fierce, organized, effective. Some veteran troops in defensive positions had escaped Normandy encirclements. Market Garden, catastrophic Allied defeat. Commonly cited casualty figures place Allied losses around 17,000. British 1st Airborne Division destroyed. December 16th to 25th, 1944. Battle of the Bulge. German surprise offensive through Ardennes. Last major German attack of war. Some attacking units included reconstituted formations from Normandy survivors. American casualties commonly cited at approximately 19,000 killed, with tens of thousands more wounded or captured. The connection. Escaped Normandy veterans contributed to German defensive capacity in subsequent months. They were not the sole factor in later Allied setbacks, but they were part of the equation. The decision at Falaise had ripple effects. How large? Historians debate, but the escaped forces did fight again. The calculation, August 13th. Protect clear operational boundaries. Minimize friendly fire risk. Maintain Anglo-American alliance harmony. The military cost? War extended. Some casualties in later battles involved facing troops who might have been neutralized at Falaise. Why Bradley stopped Patton? Official reason? Boundary protocols. Friendly fire risk. Fuller picture, coalition politics and operational tempo differences also shaped the decision, according to historians who examined private correspondence. Why Patton couldn't say it? Military discipline, alliance politics, personal vulnerability. He understood the layers, almost never spoke them publicly. Died with frustration largely unexpressed in official forums. Why it matters. This is pattern in coalition warfare. Coordination between allies, complex. National sensitivities matter. Operational tempo differences create friction. Sometimes political and organizational needs influence military decisions. Generals make choices knowing coalition harmony can matter as much as tactical speed. Bradley chose boundaries and alliance over rapid closure. Patton obeyed despite frustration. Montgomery defended his operational pace. Tens of thousands of Germans escaped. Some fought in subsequent battles. All because addressing uncomfortable truths about coordination challenges would expose alliance tensions. That is reality of coalition warfare. That is why Patton stayed discreet. That is why Bradley defended a decision he knew had costs. That is why the gap stayed open. In coalition operations, sometimes harmony takes precedence over speed. The cost is usually paid in the field. This decision's full weight appears not in official reports, but in private papers, diaries, and post-war assessments. And the gap stayed open. Patton stopped at Argentan. Tens of thousands of Germans escaped. They fought at Market Garden and Bulge. Eisenhower. In preparing for battle, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. Bradley planned for harmony. Patton planned for speed. Harmony won. Subscribe for military history that doesn't sanitize the costs.